Real-time analysis, first place in Alabama is disrupted by Texas AM. Nick Saban warned his players of a trap game and his team fell right into it. 6 days after losing its top 25 ranking, Texas AM upset top-ranked Alabama 41-38 on Saturday night in Kyle Field to end what had been a 19-game winning streak for the Tide. The program's 100-game run of victories over unranked opponents vanished with it, and a cloud of doubt about Alabama's chances for the college football playoff will now hover over the remainder of the season. Alabama still controls its own destiny to win the SEC West, which now has no unbeaten teams remaining. But its margin for error is now gone, and its path to back-to-back national titles will almost certainly require both making the SEC championship game and winning it. By becoming the first team to beat Alabama since Auburn in 2019, Aggies coach Jimbo Fisher also became the first of Nick Saban's former assistants to beat him. Saban's record in those games now stands at 24-1. The warnings before the storm. Alabama's win last week over then 12 Ole Miss, which included a 35-0 start, was its most dominant of the first 5 games. That cleared what had seemed to be Alabama's biggest hurdle to win SEC West title, and led into a streak of 5 consecutive games against currently unranked opponents. The Aggies were first on that list, having lost back-to-back games against Arkansas and Mississippi State. But Saban cautioned during the week that the Aggies, which were ranked number 6 in the preseason, were maybe the best team we've played to this point from a personnel standpoint. Saban explained Texas A&M was trying to get a new quarterback, sophomore Zach Calzada, up to speed after an injury to starter Haynes King. But Saban believed the rest of the team was as good as any other in the country. "I think this is a dangerous team. I think this is a little bit of a trap game for us," he said during his Thursday night radio show, adding he expected the Aggies to be a little humiliated and like a wounded animal coming off 2 losses. How Alabama fell into its hole. Saban's words were prophetic, as Texas A&M moved 54 yards on the opening drive and scored a field goal, creating Alabama's first deficit since its October 17th game against Georgia last season. But that was just the beginning of the night's production for the Aggies, which entered the game ranked 83rd among FBS teams in total offense and 103rd in points. Calzada, who was completing only 54% of his passes before Saturday, completed his first 10 for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alabama allowed Tite and Jalen Weidemeyer to get wide open for a 27-yard score, and could not cover Aeneas Smith on a 6-yard catch. Meanwhile, after scoring an early touchdown, Alabama coughed up the ball on back-to-back first-quarter drives on a fumble and interception by Bryce Young, his third in as many games. Alabama's 17-7 deficit by the end of the first quarter was its first time trailing by double digits since its loss to LSU in November 2019. The crowd of 106,815 became a factor in a similar way to the pressure Alabama faced in Gainesville last month. Young took 3 sacks in the second quarter, coming away with only 3 points despite Alabama's defense delivering a turnover. A third Aggies touchdown made the deficit 24-10 at halftime. How Alabama climbed out. Alabama's comeback began when its defense forced Texas A&M to punt from their own 13-yard line early in the third quarter, with Ja'Cory Brooks blocking the punt and King Wakuda narrowly recovering it in the end zone for a touchdown. The Aggies responded immediately with a 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, returning their advantage to 14 points with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. But the Tide pushed back with a touchdown drive capped by a 29-yard catch by Jameson Williams that cut Texas A&M's lead to 1 possession. Alabama's defense came up with a stop, and the Tide made it a 4-point game on a field goal by Will Reichard early in the fourth quarter. The Tide's defenses entered the game without 2 of its top 3 outside linebackers in Christopher Allen and Drew Sanders, and lost starting nickelback Malachi Moore to an early targeting penalty. But it played its best of the night in the second half, holding Texas A&M to a total of 24 yards on 4 drives, all ending in punts. The offense, which had largely been unproductive through the first 3 quarters outside of Brian Robinson, had its most impressive drive when it mattered most in the fourth quarter. Young completed 4 passes for 69 yards, the final 3 coming to Jameson Williams, including what was the go-ahead touchdown with 5 minutes left. How Alabama lost. But after holding the line to allow for Alabama's comeback, the defense lost its grip and allowed a 65-yard touchdown drive late in the fourth quarter, tying the game at 38 with 3 minutes left. The offense went 3 and out on back-to-back incompletions by Bryce Young, who finished 28 of 48 for 369 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. His 139.4 was the sophomore's worst in 6 starts. Calzada, returning from a play that injured him on the game-tying touchdown, drove Texas A&M down the field in the final 3 minutes. The Aggies successfully ran down the clock and kicked a 28-yard field goal to win it. What's next? As Alabama's winning streak swelled to 19 games, matching a streak that was snapped in 2010, Saban warned about forgetting what it's like to lose and not respecting winning. Saturday's loss could refocus Saban's players without having jeopardized the season. The Aggies, with 2 conference losses, are not a threat to overtake Alabama unless the Tide suffers what would be a season-defining second defeat. And the rest rest of the SEC West all has blemishes on their records, meaning Alabama can run the table and still qualify for the conference championship. The path forward remains favorable, beginning with a road game against unranked Mississippi State next Saturday night. Its following 4 games are at home, and none against a currently ranked team until it meets Arkansas in late November. Mike Rodick is an Alabama beat reporter for Alabama Media Group. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Rodak.